This lesson is answering a question from a viewer, and I'm so sorry it's taking me so long to get out, but fall is crazy busy and I process a lot of our own food. We do lots of cleanup. Also, we had this huge storm that broke a ton of our trees, just snapped them right in half, and so we have a ton of yard cleanup to do. So I apologize for taking so long. But the question, I'm not going to write the question on the board because you really need to focus on understanding this. If you do not understand your past participle, you are not going to understand the question at all. So I'll write the question on the board a little bit later in the lesson. When you're looking into a dictionary and you're trying to understand your irregular verbs, you're going to get your simple tense. Some people might say your present tense, your simple present tense, but no matter what, this is first person simple present of draw, okay? And it has to be first person because if it's third person, it's going to have the S on here. That's why I put it up here that this is the first person simple tense, and it's draw. So everything will come off of this simple tense verb unless it is an irregular, which drawn is an irregular. So then we have our simple past is drew, and then our past participle is drawn. We have lots of irregulars out there, but maybe only 3, I'm just guessing the percentage, 2, 3, 4% of our verbs are irregulars. So I would study your irregular verbs to get the main ones down that we talk about. Okay, so we have our first person simple present tense draw, then we have our simple past drew, and our past participle drawn. So when you say when you want your principal parts of drawn, that's what it's going to come up: draw, drew, and drawn. Now these are 3 of the principal parts, but there are 4 principal parts. You have the first one is the present, which is your first person simple tense of draw. That's your first principal part. The second is the present participle. Well, the present participle is going off of your simple tense and you're adding your ing, which puts you in the progressive tense. Okay, so now then the third one is the past, which is drew. It's an irregular, but most pasts you would take your simple tense and then you add your suffix ed, which puts you in the past. Then you have your past participle. In here it's irregular, so most of the time you're going to get your past participle with the ed. You're going to put it on your simple tense of draw. Well, it's not of draw because that's an irregular verb. So your simple tense, and then you're going to add it, and that's how you're going to get your past participle. But so remember, there's 4 principal parts. So what are they? Your present participle, your past, and your past participle. So those are pretty easy to remember. If you see how these are connected, your present and your present participle, your past and your past participle. But the whole key is how do we actually use them properly in a sentence? Oh, and then we have our future, which is the word will. Now we have some other words that we use, but first off, I want you to understand will. So we're going to take it and use this word most of the time. We do go into other words further on in our lesson. So most schools, when they are teaching you, they teach you that there are 3 tenses. And they say it's the past, present, and the future. Past, present, future. You hear that all of the time. Now when I'm teaching it, I typically teach it with the present, past, and future because the present is the most difficult. You have the most difficult thing to understand in the present. But this is where there is confusion. So you have 3 tenses, correct? But look, you actually have 4. I have 3 here. We have not gone over the 4th one. Under each past, you have your simple, progressive, your perfect, and then we have another one that I'm not going into that because it'll cause confusion. In the present, you have your simple, progressive, and perfect. In the future, you have your simple, progressive, and your perfect. So you need to understand each one of these to understand your past participle, because your past participle is your perfect. You're perfect, you're perfect. That's how you function with your past participle. When you want to do the perfect in the past, you have to use the word drawn. When you want to do the perfect in the present, you have to use the word drawn. You have to use the proper auxiliary verbs for that to work. Now, so let's talk about that. We have your simple, progressive, and your perfect. So we're going to use the word draw, which is the confusion here. So you're going to use your irregular verb, draw. It's simple, but to put it into the progressive, because remember, up there is the simple present tense. It's your base word. It's your main base word. So we have simple, super easy. Then we have our progressive, which puts you in the present participle, and you have your helping verb plus drawing. Ing puts you in the progressive tense, which is your present participle. You have to use your auxiliary verbs. So that makes the word drawing. Now, perfect is where you have confusion. Perfect, you have to use the helping verb, the auxiliary verb. They're both the same. Auxiliary verb just explains all of the verbs at once. Helping verbs, they put it in a certain category for you to understand. Helping verbs help another verb make sense. So then you're using the helping verb plus your past participle, your fourth principal part, and that puts you in the perfect. So your past participle, we're talking about this past participle, comes off with the irregular verbs draw in the simple tense, and then we have our simple past is drew, our progressive is drawing, and our perfect is our past participle drawn. Now we're going to look at a regular verb. We're babysitting her. There she is. They're for my nephew. So let's talk about the past participle off of a regular verb. We're going to use the verb love. Now, regular verbs with the past participle, we just add your ed. Okay? This is a suffix. Ed, it means you're putting it in the past, just like ing means that you're putting it in the progressive tense, okay? The moving forward, it's your present participle. So now you've formed your ed with your simple present, with this simple present, okay? Simple present tense. This is your simple present tense. Your first person simple present tense. Okay, so now to do the simple past, to get that simple past right there, you're just going to drop the e and add your suffix ed, to be loved. Now the progressive, you're going to drop your and you're going to add ing. So you need to follow spelling rules when you're adding on your suffixes. So that's your second, the present participle. This is the third of your principal parts. This simple past is the third. And now we have perfect, which is your past participle right here, number 4. And it's the exact same thing. So this is why so many people get confused. Well, is it the past or the past participle? It's the exact same word with regular verbs. Irregular verbs is where you're going to have a lot of confusion with that. But still, so many people get confused because they're saying, well, it's the same word. It is the same word, but you have to do different things with that. In the perfect tense, you have to use an auxiliary verb. And if it's the past participle, see, this is going to be the simple past, but this is your perfect. Okay? past, present, and future. This right here is the past participle. This is the past participle. This is not your past participle. Do you see that? This is not the past participle. This is the past participle. It's the exact same word. So when people say, well, is this the past participle? You could say, yeah, it's the exact same word, but you need to understand how to use it. How to use that past participle sitting in the perfect tense, you have to use an auxiliary verb with that. Now, auxiliary verbs you use with the progressive past, present, and future. Okay? Look, progressive, past, present, and future. With the perfect, past, present, and future. See? Past, present, and future. With the perfect, your past, present, and future. See how we have that past, present, and future? So important for you to understand. Now, you have to use the correct auxiliary verb, helping verb, for you to understand where it's going to go. Now, all of these words go with your progressive. It goes with your ing. So if you want it to be in the present, you're going to use am, are, and is. Am is singular and is singular. Am is first person, is third person. Now, this is where you get confused. The present changes. Present right here is going off of this. Your number two, of your principal part, your present participle. That's this right here. Okay? Now, this is your past. It's going to go off of your present participle, ing, and you're going to use the auxiliary verbs was and were. Now, if you're going to go in second person uses the auxiliary verbs that is plural. That's you. You are, you were. It doesn't matter if it's singular or plural, you're going to use these verbs. Okay? Now, the future, and this is where the confusion happens. The future is will be. Will be loving. Okay? So, now, the perfect auxiliary verbs. If you want it, so we're going to look at the perfect because this right here is the past participle. This is not, because we labeled it simple past. So we know that that's not the past participle. This is the past participle because it's labeled perfect. Okay? So now, in the present, we have and has, which is super confusing because have is first person, has is what? Third person. So have is first person, has is third person. So that's where you're going to get confusion right here. So it's in the present tense and we're going to use loved. Have loved, has loved. Okay, now let's say we want it in the past. Okay, we're going to use the auxiliary verb had loved. Now remember, perfect means it's finalized, it's perfected. So this is a solid, it's over, it's done. But where there's so much confusion is how can you have the past with the future? Is that confusing? So confusing. How do you have the past with the future? I mean, the perfect past with the future. I mean, it's over and done with the future. Okay, so the question is, can you please elaborate further on I will have drawn a dragon? Drawn a dragon. Okay. So this is what the question is. I will have drawn a dragon. Well, how are you going to will have drawn a dragon when it's in the past? This right here is your past participle. So how do you put that in the future? Okay, so will have drawn. So we have drawn as your past participle. You have will have, which they are your helping verbs. Will have puts you in the future. Okay? And this puts you in the perfect finalized past. Now, will have drawn, means a certain time in the future. That's what that means. A certain time in the future you will have drawn. Now, if you're not understanding what the verb have means, what does the verb have mean?
It means you have.
You own it. You possess it. Okay? You're possessing that have. You're possessing the drawn. Okay? So the will have drawn means a certain time in the future. That means you will have perfected. It means you will have finalized. You will have completed sometime in the future. It means I will have perfected, right? Perfect, perfected. You will have, perfected means finalized, completed. You will have perfected the verb draw. The verb simple tense of draw. You're finalizing it. I will have drawn a dragon. A certain time in the future, you will have perfected, finalized, completed the verb draw. Okay, Danny, I hope that was helpful, and we'll see you in the next lesson.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.